It's the Brad and John Show.
And it's the Brad and John Show for April 16th. It's a Wednesday, and this is C Block, which means we started about 7:40 or so. Okay, the story I referred to in the last block was the story that has hit the news yesterday is that the Justice Department is going after Letitia James. Have you?
For what? What is her transgression now, Brad?
Mortgage fraud.
Oh, wow.
Matter of fact, it says Trump administration refers NYAG Letitia James for possible prosecution over allegations of mortgage fraud. Talks about here that in documents obtained by Fox News Channel, the Federal Housing Finance Agency, FHFA, sent a criminal referral to the Department of Justice accusing James of mortgage fraud Tuesday. Director William Pulta said in a letter to Attorney General Pam Bondi that James appears to have falsified records to meet certain lending requirements and receive favorable loan terms. Pulte cited a property in Virginia that James allegedly claimed as her principal residence and a property in New York she claimed as a 4-unit structure instead of 5, which he said could mean she was able to get a more favorable and different loan. The story goes on to talk about, and this is sort of interesting, it goes on to talk about the fact that in one of the documents, she listed her father as her husband.
Oh, wow. Now, Brad, was that a simple bookkeeping error?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it says Jonathan Turley, and sometimes, you know who Jonathan Turley is, right?
No, I don't know who that is.
Come on, you don't know who Jonathan Turley is? He's all over.
Come on, I don't know, Brad.
He's all over Fox News.
Does he advertise? Is he one of the guys that advertises that if you're getting a letter from the IRS, call him right away?
No, he's a national guy. He's some professor at some university in D.C.
So you don't know what university he's at?
I don't know. I mean, you know.
Okay. I don't know who he is. So you and I both don't know who he is, Brad.
It's not Webster University. He's a Fox a contributor, and he's a legal analyst, and he's some bigwig or something like that.
Okay, we got it. Go ahead.
Okay, so that's the other thing that she claims that. Here we go, Sam. James is also accused of saying her father was her husband to file as a married couple. Quote, the Supreme Court just stated earlier in March in a case called Thompson that what they see knowing false statements under section like 1014, not just misleading statements. These are misleading statements. Either it's your principal residence or it's not. Either you're married to your father or he's your father. The DOJ and James did not respond to the news on the matter. Now, the reason I sort of teased this in our previous block was this is PBMF. I mean, this is just pure PBMF. She goes after Trump, and, you know, I think the thing that to me is problematic, if you know your history of her running for Attorney General in New York City or New York State, she openly admitted part of her campaign promise was she was going to take down Trump. Remember this? We talked about this before.
I do remember that. She was explicit about it.
Yes.
And the great Will Scharf talked about this all the time as a member of Trump's legal team.
Right. All the time. And it's to the point where how can you have, I mean, like that would be like, let's say I've got a case pending in St. Charles County and it's under Judge XYZ. And Judge XYZ is at a Chamber of Commerce meeting, and he steps up to the microphone and says, I want to thank you for all inviting me here, and I want you to know that I've got a case with Brad Hildebrand, and he doesn't stand a snowball's chance in hell in my court.
Yeah, and he sucks.
Right, and he sucks, and his radio stations suck. You know, people are going to go, whoa, Brad doesn't have a snowball's chance in hell. You know what I mean? It's to the point where...
Yeah, I mean, the whole point of being an impartial arbiter is that you are... you are disinterested in the case.
Exactly. So why is it that she can run for the state attorney general's office, essentially saying, I'm going to get Trump, and how can she not be disqualified? I mean, I just don't get this kind of stuff. Now, once again, I'm sorry, I get carried away with that. I say she started it, okay? Because if this is one of these things where be careful who you poke. What they say, don't ever poke the bear.
Don't poke the bear. Don't swat at a hornet's nest.
Right, exactly. What's that? Yeah. Jim Croce. You don't mess around with Jim.
You don't mess around with Jim. You don't spit in the wind.
You don't mess around with Trump because he's going to exact his retribution upon you. Would that be sort of?
Yeah, absolutely. And Brad, I think it's been many, many months since you told the story. There was some dude who was doing stuff to Trump's former wife, and then Trump was asked about it. And didn't you say, and what was Trump's comment about it?
This was back in the day. I remember driving to when Stern was still on The Point, when he was on, regular radio.
Yeah.
And I drove to work, and I'm thinking to myself, this is the most fascinating interview, because once again, Stern asks the questions everybody wants. At least he used to. Now he sucks.
He used to, yeah.
Now he just sucks. Now can I make a parallel?
Yeah, please do.
Him and JC are on a similar path. Once upon a time, no, just hear me out. Once upon a time, he was like the average guy. And you were pulling for him. Like, hey, man, Stern, he's one of us. JC, he's one of us. But then, when he got a little bit of fame, and he starts rubbing elbows with all those rock stars and things like that, and going to, in JC's case, going on the junkets and talking to the movie stars about their new movies and things like that, he became not one of us anymore. He became one of them. Okay? Would that make sense if I said that?
Yeah, you're saying that he was a K-wolf in sheep's clothing.
I'm not going to say that. Okay, the show was, he had Donald Trump, and Donald Trump used to be on the Stern Show all the time, and Stern asked him up front, how did it feel? And the story was, I can't remember which one of these wives it was. Maybe it
might have been Marla Maples. I'm not sure.
I don't know. One of them. But he decided that he was going to have his head of security, the guy he trusted the most, be her personal bodyguard. She actually had a group of guys that were her personal bodyguard team, and he was in charge of that. So he gave that job to this guy, and he trusted him. Well, what happened was the guy got a little bit too close to his wife, and apparently they got
he was really patting her down to make sure she didn't have anything.
Right, doing more a little pat down. And Trump said right on the air, he said, I trusted this man. He broke my trust, and I will make his life miserable for the rest of my life. And Stearns was like, well, how are you going to do that? And he says, keep in mind, I have attorneys on staff. I pay these guys, whether they do anything or not, and they're just going to go after him no matter what. We file a suit against him. We charge him with something, whatever we charge him with. Even though the court throws it out, we file another suit. And we just bury
and you know what? Some would call that lawfare.
Well, but the interesting thing was it came back to bite Trump in the butt. So maybe it truly is, and that's a good point, John. PBMF comes back to bite Trump. He uses the law to screw with people, and other people use the law to screw with Trump. And I say, and once again, I'm going to do an impression. I do really good impressions. You ever heard my impressions before?
I do want to hear it.
Let me clear my voice. I'm going to do an impression, okay? Here I go.
Just want to say, can we all get along? Can we get along?
That was my Rodney King impression. What did you think, John? Did I nail it or what?
It was so close to him, Brad. You sounded a little bit decrepit. You sounded a little drug-addled. And we lost Rodney King, right?
Yeah, he died. He drowned in a swimming pool. Some crazy stuff like that.
Was he on PCP?
I don't know. You know what's sad about that is, God, you know what? I know people, me being in the radio business, John, here's a movie you don't ever want to watch. Don't ever watch this movie, okay?
I will never watch it now, Brad. Actually, I'll run out and watch it. What should I never watch?
The movie Almost Famous, okay?
Oh, yeah, you've told me this before. I've studiously avoided it.
Almost Famous is a tremendous movie. It's sort of semi-autobiographical about Cameron Crowe. He directed, I think he wrote, or at least partly wrote the movie and directed it and stuff like that. Excellent movie with, I think, the breakout role of a couple people in the movie. And it's just an incredible movie. But the interesting thing for me, the first time I saw it, the movie is centered in 1973, okay? I lived 1973 in the radio business, okay? Long time ago, I know. I'm an old guy. I lived 1973 in the radio business, okay? It was sex, drugs, and rock and roll. It's not that way anymore. To a certain extent, it is a little bit in some places, but most of the time it's not what it used to be. It's just crazy time. It's just bizarre, weird stuff that you'd never think would go on. I could tell stories about stuff that I personally witnessed. I can tell stories about crazy people that I worked with that I give this example all the time. The original studios of KSOQ are 111 South Bemiston. That address no longer exists in downtown Clayton. The reason it doesn't exist is because the building we were in was knocked down, along with the rest of the buildings on that block, or actually half block, to build the St. Louis County Jail. And my running joke is some of the guys I worked with at 111 South Bemiston are still there. They may have left for a while, but they're back and they're incarcerated because that's where the road they were on. I mean, there's so many people I know who have died. I talk about this all the time, about Howard Stern talks about pig vomit. I worked for pig vomit. Matter of fact, pig vomit, guy by the name of Kevin Matheny. Kevin Matheny left KSLQ to take the job with WNBC and Howard Stern when he was doing afternoons at NBC. And if you know the joke,
and how did he meet his demise, Brad? How did he come to his end?
I've told you the story, didn't I?
A lot of people haven't heard it, Brad.
It's probably been.
I don't think most people know how he actually died.
It's probably been 10 years ago. Kevin Matheny bounced around the country, had all these great jobs. He was managed WGN Chicago, and at the time he was working for, I think he was working for Cumulus. I can't remember. It was iHeart, one of the big companies, and he was out in San Francisco running KSFN or KSAN and KFOG, the two big talk stations. And the owner of the company, the president, was in New York talking to Kevin on the phone. And Kevin was in his office on the speakerphone, and they were having this conversation, and Kevin said to the owner of the company, "Hold on a minute." And the phone didn't go dark or didn't go dead. It just, they talked about the owner of the company in the story I read, he could still hear the radio was playing in the background. You could hear still, their office sounds in the background. And he's going, "Kevin, Kevin, Kevin, Kevin," and no answer. So he picks up his other phone at his desk, and he calls the front desk at KSAN and KFOG and says, "Hey, I was just talking to Kevin," and he said, "Hold on a minute," and he's gone. They go back, and Kevin died. He had a heart attack at his desk. And I don't think they did an autopsy, but if they did, you know what they would have found, John?
They would have found a little cocaine, a little Colombian marching powder.
I don't know about that, but he had, the sad thing is that people who use cocaine quite a bit, it screws their heart up. You know what I mean?
Yeah, the heart is a muscle, and if you abuse it, it's gonna deteriorate.
Right, and Kevin died prematurely, and you know what? Kevin was a brilliant guy. I mean, the bizarre part of the story was Kevin came in, and I was working there at the time. He fired everybody except for me. And I still, to this day, do not know why that happened. And it's funny because every once in a while, him and I would have these strange, weird, heart-to-heart conversations. And I would say, like, "Okay, Kevin, why did you keep me?" "Ah, Brad, don't worry about it."
Now, but didn't he think that you were a Make-A-Wish kid?
No.
And didn't he keep you behind? I thought he kept you behind like a glass wall, Brad.
No.
And he would slip a quarter in, and you would do a dance. You'd clang the cymbals together.
No, that wasn't it. Okay.
Oh,
okay. Here's something really interesting. I heard this yesterday, and I did a little research, and the city of St. Louis could probably benefit by this. You heard of ghost guns? You know what ghost guns are?
All right. Yeah.
Have you ever
have they had their serial number filed off?
Right. Or they're manufactured by somebody, and there was no serial number. But what's interesting, if you go back to the heritage of firearms in the United States, firearms used to be made by blacksmiths and stuff like that, and they had no serial numbers.
For sure. Okay, so ghost guns, what about them?
Ghost cars. Have you ever heard this before?
No, I haven't.
In New York...
Can you get it like in a Sears catalog?
No, here's what's interesting. In New York City, they have a law against ghost cars. And ghost cars are cars that have one of three things. Actually, have one of two things or lack a third thing. The one of two things is A, they either have temporary plates, B, they have expired plates, or C, they have no plates. And you know what the city of New York does?
Do they confiscate them?
They tow them and impound them. So
nice. And the city can't do that here. Why?
Well, I don't know, but that's
a great question,
but
right?
The reason for this is that story talked about the fact that that there has been, since the city is now doing this thing with the congestion pricing, where if you drive into Manhattan, you got to pay $20 and stuff like that. And they have reinvigorated the red light cameras. So there has been a uptick in people who, A, smear mud or something on their license plates, B, deface their license plates, C, put like some kind of a tinted lens over their license plates. Those are now being considered as ghost cars, and if they find those as well, they tow them, and the reason for them is that they don't want anybody to be outside of the Big Brother camera system that's going to nail them for either A, speed violations, B, stoplight violations, or C, not paying the congestion pricing. Now, I thought to myself, boy, the city of St. Louis should listen to this, because everybody complains about, there's you watch it on Facebook. I know you're not a Facebook guy. There's probably a day that doesn't go by that somebody doesn't post a picture of like temporary plates from like 2022, and
yeah, that's one of the things that Charlie Brennan does all the time on Twitter.
Right.
He's like, and people will tweet him and say, we found another one.
Yes, exactly. Well, in New York City, they don't put up with that. They call the hook. The hook comes, and they tow the car, and they impound it. And you want your car back? If you want your car back, here's what you got to do. First off, you have to get it legally registered. And then second off, you have to pay a whopping fine for, A, having expired or illegitimate plates or no plates whatsoever. And B, for essentially the tow fee. So you just get nailed. And they're talking about the fact that the average person that tries to get their car back from the city as a ghost car, it's well into four figures. Sometimes $2,000 and $3,000 by the time they assess all the fines and the towing fee and stuff like that, and the storage fee and stuff like that. So, City of St. Louis, maybe they should listen to what New York City does. And the interesting thing about that is, if you think the population of the city of St. Louis is low, wait till they enforce that. You know that
people... And what about, and also too, couldn't they work out a deal with pick and pull? Where if nobody claims it after a period of time, it could go straight to Brad Hildebrand's favorite spot.
John, it's funny you should mention that, because I have two cars that I bought on salvage titles that was exactly what happened with them. They're not impounded, but there's a law in the state of Missouri called mechanics lien. And that's how I got two cars. Literally, what happens is, if you have work done at a repair shop and then you don't ever come pick up the car, they have to send you, there's a legal procedure. They have to send you certified letters. Hey, if you don't come and pay your repair bill on such and such a day, we're going to apply for title in the car under mechanics lien. And if they don't show up, then they file the paperwork with the state, and the state sends them a title, and it's a salvage title. That's the only downside to it. It becomes a salvage title. The one of them that I have on a salvage title is my mother's car, which I think I probably told this bizarre, weird story, how my mother's car, after she passed away, was stolen and ended up in a tow lot, and the only way I could get it back, because in the state of Missouri, the only person that can claim a car out of a tow lot is the registered owner, and since my mother was deceased, they would not give the car to me, and I pleaded with the guy for sentimental reasons, and he was a very nice guy, and essentially said, okay, when we get the salvage title, we'll deal with you. And they did. It was 6 months later, they applied for a salvage title, and I ended up with the car, which is I still have to this day.
And your first effort to get the car back under the name of your mom was the inspiration for Tootsie. And you've been humble about that, but Dustin Hoffman owes a lot to you.
I showed up at the tow lot. Yes, I'm Mrs. Hildebrand. Can't you tell I'm Mrs.
By the way, can you take the radio out of the car? Because I don't want to listen to the stupid radio.
Then they would have said, you are Mrs. Hildebrand. We've heard that story before. Yes. If you haven't heard me tell the story, my mother hated the radio. And in my entire radio career, which she was live, she never once listened to me on the radio. Which, you know what, maybe that's... What
a lucky woman. And by the way, all the books on the shelves at the Kirby Junior High library just fell off the shelf, and nobody knows why.
It's my mom. Okay, John, say goodbye.
See you guys tomorrow.